The gunshot that shattered the evening calm sent Harper Winters diving behind a rain barrel, her heart hammering so hard she thought it might crack her ribs. She had been running for 3 weeks now, and somehow Marcus had found her again. The bullet splintered the wooden post where her head had been just seconds before, and she knew with terrible certainty that her ex-lover would not miss twice. She scrambled to her feet, hiking up her dusty skirts, and ran toward the only shelter she could see. A sprawling ranch house silhouetted against the darkening Texas sky. Blood pounded in her ears as her boots ate up the distance between the road and that house. Behind her, she heard Marcus shouting, his voice twisted with rage and whiskey. She had thought Coolidge, Texas would be far enough, remote enough, that he would never find her. She had been wrong. The front porch seemed miles away, and her lungs burned with the effort of running. Just as she reached the steps, a figure emerged from the doorway, tall and broad-shouldered, holding a rifle with the ease of a man who knew exactly how to use it. "Please," Harper gasped, stumbling up the steps. "Please, he will kill me." The man looked past her toward the road where Marcus was approaching on horseback, still brandishing his pistol. Without a word, the rancher stepped in front of Harper, positioning himself squarely between her and the threat. He planted his feet on his own porch and raised the rifle to his shoulder, his stance unwavering. "That is far enough," the rancher called out, his voice carrying across the yard with quiet authority. "You are on my property now, and the lady seems to want nothing to do with you." Marcus reined in his horse about 20 yards from the house, his face flushed and contorted. "That woman is mine, and she has no right to run from me. Hand her over." "Cannot do that," the rancher said, and Harper noticed he did not lower the rifle even a fraction of an inch. "You fired a weapon at a woman. In Texas, we do not take kindly to that sort of thing." Harper pressed herself against the wall of the house, trying to make herself small. She could see Marcus calculating, trying to determine if he could outshoot this stranger. For a terrible moment, she thought he might try. Then Marcus seemed to notice the unwavering steadiness of the rancher's aim, the complete lack of fear or hesitation in his posture. "This is not over, Harper," Marcus snarled. "You hear me? This is not over by a long shot." "It is over if I see you on my land again," the rancher said, still not moving. "Next time, I will not be issuing warnings." Marcus spat on the ground, yanked his horse around, and galloped back toward town. The rancher stood there, rifle still raised, until the sound of hoofbeats faded completely into the distance. Only then did he lower the weapon and turn to face Harper. In the fading light, she could see he had dark hair touched with gray at the temples, sun-weathered skin, and eyes the color of strong coffee. He appeared to be somewhere in his mid-30s, with the kind of solid build that came from years of hard work rather than natural bulk. "You are bleeding," he said, gesturing to her arm. Harper looked down and saw that a splinter from the wooden post had torn through her sleeve and gouged her forearm. The adrenaline had kept her from noticing. Now that she saw it, the wound began to throb. "Come inside," the rancher said. "I have medical supplies. My name is Bennett Nash. This is the Copper Creek Ranch." "Harper Winters," she managed, though her voice shook. "I am so sorry to bring trouble to your door. I did not know where else to go." Bennett Nash held the door open for her, and she stepped into a surprisingly neat house. The front room contained sturdy furniture, nothing fancy but well-made and carefully maintained. A stone fireplace dominated one wall, and through an open doorway, she could see a kitchen. Bennett gestured for her to sit at the large wooden table while he retrieved a metal box from a cabinet. "This might sting," he warned as he cleaned the wound with whiskey. His hands were gentle despite their size, and Harper found herself studying his face as he worked. He had strong, honest features, the kind of face that did not know how to lie. There was a sadness in his eyes that spoke of old pain, but also a steadiness that made her feel safer than she had in months. "You do not have to tell me your story," Bennett said as he wrapped a clean bandage around her arm. "But that man will likely come back. It would help to know what I am dealing with." Harper took a shaky breath. "His name is Marcus Reeves. We were engaged to be married last year in San Antonio. I thought I loved him, but after we announced our engagement, he changed. He became possessive, controlling. He would fly into rages over nothing, accuse me of looking at other men. Then he started hitting me." Bennett's jaw tightened, but he said nothing, letting her continue. "I broke off the engagement 3 months ago. He took it badly. He told me that if he could not have me, no one would. I thought if I left San Antonio, came north, I could start fresh. He found me in Austin, then again in Waco. Each time I ran. I arrived in Coolidge 2 weeks ago, got work at the boarding house doing laundry and mending. I thought I had finally gotten far enough away." "How did he find you?" Bennett asked, securing the bandage. "I do not know. He always does." Harper felt tears threatening and blinked them back. She had not let herself cry once during this entire ordeal, and she was not about to start now. "I have no family left, no one to turn to. My parents died of fever when I was 16, and I have been on my own since then. Marcus seemed like an answer to my prayers at first. A successful merchant, respected in the community, charming. I did not see what was beneath the surface until it was too late." Bennett sat down across from her, his expression thoughtful. "You can stay here tonight. Tomorrow we can figure out a more permanent solution. I have a spare room that my ranch hands used to use before I built them a bunkhouse. You will be safe here." "I cannot ask you to do that," Harper protested. "You do not know me. I could be trouble. Marcus is dangerous." "I can handle dangerous," Bennett said simply. "And I know enough. I know you are a woman running for her life from a man who thinks violence is an acceptable answer. That is all I need to know." Something in his tone made Harper look at him more closely. "You have dealt with this kind of thing before." It was not a question, and Bennett did not pretend to misunderstand. "My sister," he said quietly. "Her husband beat her for years. By the time she finally got the courage to leave him, it was too late. He caught her on the road to my place and killed her. That was 5 years ago." "Oh God," Harper whispered. "I am so sorry." "So am I," Bennett said. "Which is why I will not let the same thing happen to you if I can prevent it. You are welcome to stay as long as you need." Harper felt something crack open inside her chest, some small kernel of hope she had thought Marcus had beaten out of her. "Why are you doing this? You do not even know me." Bennett stood and walked to the window, looking out at the darkening prairie. "Because maybe if someone had helped my sister when she first tried to leave, she would still be alive. Because it is the right thing to do. Because I have this big empty house and plenty of work that needs doing if you want to earn your keep. Take your pick of reasons." "All of them," Harper said. "Thank you. I do not have much money, but I can cook and clean and mend. I can help with the ranch work if you show me how. We can work out the details tomorrow," Bennett said. "For tonight, you need rest. When did you last eat?" Harper tried to remember and realized it had been sometime that morning, a piece of bread she had taken from the boarding house kitchen before her shift started. Bennett saw the answer on her face and shook his head. "Let me fix you something. It will not be fancy, but it will be filling." He moved around the kitchen with practiced efficiency. And within half an hour, Harper was eating stew and fresh bread that tasted like the best meal she had ever had. Perhaps it was just the relief of being safe, of having someone stand between her and Marcus without flinching. But she felt something in her chest begin to unclench. Bennett ate across from her, not talking much, just a companionable presence that asked nothing of her. When she finished, he showed her to the spare room. It was small but clean, with a narrow bed, a dresser, and a window that looked out toward the barn. Harper noticed bars on the window and realized Bennett must have installed them after what happened to his sister. "The door locks from the inside," Bennett said, showing her. "You are safe here, I give you my word." Harper nodded, suddenly overwhelmed by exhaustion. "Thank you, Bennett, truly. I do not know what would have happened if I had not found your ranch. You are welcome. Sleep well, Harper." After he left, Harper locked the door and collapsed onto the bed, not even bothering to remove her boots. For the first time in 3 weeks, she felt like she might be able to sleep without one eye open, listening for footsteps outside her door. She woke to the smell of coffee and bacon as pale dawn light filtered through the window. For a moment, she was disoriented, then memory returned in a rush. She was at the Copper Creek Ranch. Bennett Nash had saved her life and offered her sanctuary. Marcus knew where she was. That last thought got her moving. She quickly tidied the bed and splashed water from the basin on her face before venturing out to the kitchen. Bennett was at the stove, already dressed for the day in work clothes, his dark hair still damp from washing. "Morning," he said, glancing over his shoulder. "Hope you are hungry. I made plenty." They ate breakfast together as the sun rose properly over the prairie, painting everything gold and amber. Bennett explained that he ran cattle primarily, about 200 head, with some horses on the side. He had 3 ranch hands who lived in the bunkhouse about a quarter-mile from the main house. An older man named Pete who had been with him since he started the ranch, and 2 younger cowboys, Jack and Tom, who were decent workers when they stayed sober. "They come up to the house for Sunday dinner usually," Bennett said. "Otherwise, they keep to themselves. Good men, all of them, and they will not bother you. I will make it clear you are under my protection." "What can I do to help?" Harper asked. "You said there was work that needs doing." Bennett considered. "The house could use a woman's touch, truth be told. I do my best, but I spend most of my time with the cattle and horses. If you wanted to take over the cooking and cleaning, that would be a help. Also, if you know anything about mending, half my clothes are held together with prayer and poor stitching." "I can do all of that," Harper said, relieved to have a purpose. "I worked as a seamstress before I met Marcus. It was how I supported myself after my parents died." "Then we have a deal," Bennett said. "Room and board in exchange for keeping the house. If you want wages on top of that, we can discuss it once we see how things work out." They spent the morning in cautious companionship. Bennett showed Harper around the house, explaining where things were kept, then headed out to work with the cattle. Harper threw herself into cleaning with almost desperate energy. She needed to move, needed to do something useful, needed to prove she was not just a burden. The house was not dirty exactly, but it had the neglected air of a place where a man lived alone. She washed windows, beat rugs, scrubbed floors, and reorganized the kitchen cabinets into something more logical. By midday, she had transformed the place, and she felt a small surge of satisfaction. She had been helpless for so long, running and hiding. It felt good to accomplish something tangible. She was kneading dough for bread when she heard horses approaching. Her heart leaped into her throat, and she grabbed the knife she had been using to cut vegetables. But when she looked out the window, she saw it was Bennett returning with 3 other men. He must have seen her face through the window because he waved and called out that it was just his ranch hands. Harper set down the knife with shaking hands and tried to calm her racing heart. She would have to get used to this, the constant fear that every sound might be Marcus coming back for her. Bennett came in first, the 3 ranch hands following. Pete was indeed older, probably in his 60s, with a weathered face and kind eyes. Jack and Tom looked to be in their early 20s, sunburned and lanky. All 3 removed their hats when they saw Harper. "Boys, this is Miss Harper Winters," Bennett said. She is going to be helping around the house. Harper, this is Pete Donovan, Jack Sullivan, and Tom Baker. Pleased to meet you, miss, Pete said, and the younger men echoed him. Miss Winters had some trouble in town yesterday, Bennett continued, his tone taking on an edge. Fellow named Marcus Reeves. If any of you see him around the property, you come get me immediately. He is not welcome here, and he is not to get anywhere near Miss Winters. Understood? All three men nodded seriously, and Harper saw understanding in their eyes. Ranch hands might not be educated men, but they knew danger when they heard about it. Can describe him? Tom asked. So we know who we are looking for. Harper forced herself to speak. Tall, brown hair, blue eyes. He dresses well like a merchant or banker. Usually wears a gray coat and a silver watch chain. He is handsome, charming when he wants to be. Do not let that fool you. We will keep watch, Miss Winters, Pete assured her. You are safe here. The men left to eat their midday meal at the bunkhouse, and Bennett stayed to eat the stew Harper had prepared. He complimented her cooking, and she felt a small glow of pleasure that surprised her. She had not cared about pleasing anyone in a long time, had actively avoided doing anything that might set off one of Marcus's rages. But Bennett's praise felt different, genuine, and without expectation. The next few days fell into a rhythm. Harper rose early, cooked breakfast for Bennett, then spent the day cleaning, mending, and learning the routines of the ranch. Bennett was gone most of the day working, but they shared meals together, and slowly, Harper began to relax. She caught herself humming while she worked, something she had not done since before she met Marcus. Bennett was unlike any man she had known. He was quiet but not sullen, strong but gentle, respectful without being distant. He never crowded her, never made her feel uncomfortable, never asked her to explain herself or her past beyond what she had already told him. When he came in dusty and tired from a day's work, his face would light up at the sight of the clean house and hot meal, but he never took it for granted. He always thanked her, always asked if she needed anything. On the fourth day, Harper was in town picking up supplies when she saw Marcus. He was standing outside the saloon, talking to another man. Her breath froze in her lungs and she turned quickly, pulling her bonnet forward to hide her face. She made her purchases as quickly as possible and drove the wagon back to the ranch at a pace that had the horse snorting in protest. Bennett was in the barn when she arrived, and one look at her face had him dropping the harness he was mending and crossing to her side. What happened, Marcus? In town, he saw me. The words tumbled out in a rush. I am sure he saw me. He was right there outside the saloon. Bennett's face hardened. Did he approach you? No, I left before he could. But Bennett, I am putting you in danger just by being here. Maybe I should move on, find somewhere else. No, the word was flat, final. You are not running anymore, not from here. This is your home now for as long as you want it to be. Harper felt tears sting her eyes. You cannot know that, you barely know me. I know enough, Bennett said, and there was something in his voice that made her look up at him. His eyes were warm, intent on her face. I know you are brave and strong and determined. I know you make the house feel like a home for the first time since my wife died. Harper stared at him. Your wife? Bennett looked away, a muscle working in his jaw. She died 8 years ago, fever. We had only been married 2 years. After that, then losing my sister, I figured I was better off alone, safer for everyone that way. But having you here, Harper, it has reminded me what it feels like to have someone to come home to. Harper's heart was doing strange things in her chest. Bennett, I cannot think about anything like that right now. I am still legally engaged to Marcus. He will not let me go. And I am so broken inside, I do not know if I have anything left to give anyone. I am not asking you for anything, Bennett said gently. I am just telling you that you have a place here, Whatever that looks like, however long it takes. I will stand between you and him for as long as it takes. I am not moving, Harper. Not 1 inch. Before Harper could respond, they heard the sound of hoofbeats approaching fast. Bennett immediately moved in front of her, his hand going to the pistol at his hip. But it was Pete, riding hard from the far pasture. "Boss," he called as he reined in. "That Reeves fellow is at the property line. Got a couple of men with him. They are just sitting there watching the house." Bennett's expression turned to stone. "How many?" "3 total. Reeves and 2 others. They got rifles." "Stay with Harper," Bennett ordered. "Do not let her out of your sight." He turned to Harper. "Go in the house and lock the doors. Do not come out until I tell you it is safe." "Bennett, you cannot go out there alone," Harper protested. "If he has 2 men with him, I am not alone. Pete, go get Jack and Tom. Tell them to arm up and meet me at the north fence line." Bennett looked at Harper, and his eyes were fierce. "Trust me. I told you I would stand between you and him, and I meant it." Harper wanted to argue, wanted to beg him not to risk himself, but she could see there was no point. Bennett Nash was a man who kept his word, and he had given her his protection. She nodded and hurried to the house, locking the door behind her as instructed. From the window, she watched Bennett ride out toward the property line, his rifle across his saddle. A few minutes later, Pete, Jack, and Tom followed, all armed. Harper's hands twisted in her apron as she waited, every second stretching into eternity. It was nearly an hour before she saw them riding back. Bennett was in the lead, and she searched his form anxiously for any sign of injury. He seemed whole, though his face was grim. She unlocked the door and met him on the porch. "What happened?" "I made it clear that he and his hired guns are not welcome on my land. Told him I would report him to the sheriff if he did not leave you alone." Bennett dismounted and climbed the porch steps. "He thinks he can intimidate me by showing force. He is wrong." "You could have been killed," Harper said, and she was surprised by the intensity of her fear. When had this man become so important to her? "I was not," Bennett said. "And I meant what I said. He will have to kill me to get to you, and I do not plan on making that easy for him." Over the next week, Marcus's presence became a constant threat hanging over the ranch. He rode past the property line regularly, always with his hired men, always making his presence known. Bennett set up a watch rotation so that someone was always alert, always ready. Harper felt guilty that these good men were putting themselves at risk for her, but every time she tried to suggest leaving, Bennett shut her down with gentle but absolute firmness. "You are not going anywhere," he would say. "This is where you belong." Harper tried not to think too hard about what that meant, but it was becoming increasingly difficult. She found herself watching for Bennett's return each evening, her heart lifting when she saw him ride in. She took extra care with the meals she prepared, wanting to see that look of appreciation on his face. She mended his clothes with tiny, careful stitches, finding a strange intimacy in caring for his things. One evening, about 2 weeks after she had arrived, Harper was in the kitchen preparing supper when Bennett came in earlier than usual. He had cleaned up at the pump outside and his hair was still damp. "Smells wonderful," he said, and there was something different in his voice, something softer. "Just stew," Harper said, suddenly nervous. "Nothing special." "Everything you make is special," Bennett said. He moved closer and Harper felt her breath catch. "Harper, I need to tell you something." She turned to face him, spoon still in her hand. "What is it?" "I rode into town today. Spoke with the sheriff about Marcus. Filed a formal complaint about his harassment. The sheriff is going to have a talk with him, make it clear that he needs to leave you alone or face charges." "Bennett, that might just make him angrier." "Maybe," Bennett acknowledged. "But I am tired of him thinking he can terrorize you without consequences. I also spoke with a lawyer. He says that since you were only engaged, not married, Marcus has no legal claim on you. You are free to be wherever you want to be." Harper set down the spoon with shaking hands. "That is not how Marcus sees it. I know. Which is why I also asked the lawyer about what it would take to ensure your legal protection. He said that if you were married to someone else, Marcus would have no grounds to bother you at all." Bennett took a deep breath. "Harper, I am not saying this right. What I mean is, if you wanted to, if you thought you could stand it, I would be honored if you would consider marrying me." Harper stared at him, unable to process what she was hearing. "You want to marry me, to protect me from Marcus?" "Yes, no, not just that." Bennett ran a hand through his hair, looking more uncertain than she had ever seen him. "Harper, these past 2 weeks, having you here, they have been the best weeks I have had in years. I look forward to coming home now, to seeing your face, hearing about your day. You make me laugh. You make me want to be a better man. I know it is fast, I know you have been through hell, but I cannot help how I feel. I am falling in love with you." Harper's heart was hammering so hard she felt dizzy. "Bennett, I am so damaged. Marcus broke something in me. I do not know if I can be what you need." "You already are," Bennett said. He reached out slowly, giving her plenty of time to pull away, and took her hand. His palm was warm and calloused against hers. "I am not asking you to love me back, not yet. I know that takes time. I am just asking you to let me protect you, to give us a chance to see what this could be. If you marry me, Marcus will have to back off. The law would be on our side. And even if you never feel more than friendship for me, I would be content with that. I just want you safe and happy." Harper looked down at their joined hands. She thought about the past 2 weeks, about how safe she had felt, how alive. She thought about Bennett standing on his porch with his rifle, placing himself between her and danger without a moment's hesitation. She thought about his quiet strength, his gentle humor, the way he looked at her like she was something precious. "I am not whole," she whispered. "I do not know if I ever will be." "Neither am I," Bennett said. "Maybe we can be broken together and see if the pieces fit." Harper felt something crack open in her chest, something that felt like hope. "You really mean this? You would marry me, even knowing I might never be able to give you everything a wife should? I mean every word. And Harper, you would not owe me anything. Not your body, not your love, not anything you are not ready to give freely. I just want the chance to stand beside you, to build something good together. What do you say?" Harper looked up into his honest face, his dark eyes full of hope and fear and something that might have been love. She thought about spending the rest of her life running, always looking over her shoulder, always alone. Then she thought about staying here, in this house that was beginning to feel like home, with this man who made her feel safe for the first time in longer than she could remember. "Yes," she said. "Yes, I will marry you." The smile that broke across Bennett's face was like sunrise. He squeezed her hand gently, then released it, respecting her space. "We can go into town tomorrow, talk to the preacher. Unless you want to wait, have a proper wedding with a dress and guests and all that." Harper shook her head. "No, the sooner the better, before Marcus finds out and tries to stop it." "Then tomorrow it is," Bennett agreed. "Harper, I promise you I will spend every day trying to be worthy of this. You will not regret it." "I know," Harper said, and realized with surprise that she meant it. Whatever else happened, she trusted Bennett Nash with her life and her future. That was more than she had ever expected to feel for anyone again. They rode into Coolidge the next morning, early enough that the town was just waking up. Bennett had told Pete what they were doing, and the older man had volunteered to come along as witness, his weathered face split in a rare grin. "About time you found yourself someone, boss," he had said. "House has been too quiet too long." The preacher, Reverend Thomas, was a kindly man in his 50s who asked no questions about the hasty wedding. He married them in the small church at the edge of town, with Pete and the preacher's wife as witnesses. Harper wore her best dress, a simple blue calico that Bennett had said made her eyes look like the summer sky. She had no ring, but Bennett produced one from his pocket anyway, a simple gold band that he said had been his grandmother's. "I was going to wait, get you something new," he said as he slipped it onto her finger. "But this seemed right somehow. 3 generations of Nash wives have worn this ring. All of them were loved and cherished. I hope that will be true for you too." Harper looked at the ring on her finger, gleaming in the morning light filtering through the church windows, and felt tears prick her eyes. When Reverend Thomas told Bennett he could kiss his bride, Bennett looked at Harper first, asking permission. She nodded, and he leaned in to brush his lips against hers so gently it was barely a touch. But Harper felt it all the way to her toes, a warmth that spread through her chest and made her think that maybe, just maybe, she could heal after all. They were walking out of the church when Marcus appeared. He stepped out from behind a building across the street, his face purple with rage. "No," he roared. "No, you cannot do this. Harper, you are mine." Bennett immediately moved in front of Harper, his hand on his gun. Pete flanked them, his own weapon drawn. Marcus started toward them, but the sheriff emerged from his office down the street, drawn by the shouting. "That is enough, Reeves," Sheriff Coleman called. He was a solid man in his 40s with iron gray hair and the kind of authority that came from years of keeping the peace. "I told you yesterday to leave Miss Winters alone. Now I hear you are harassing her and threatening Mr. Nash. That ends now." "She is engaged to me," Marcus shouted. "She cannot just marry someone else." "She is not engaged to you anymore," Bennett said, his voice level. "She is married to me. We just came from the church. It is legal and binding, and you need to accept that and move on." "You took her from me," Marcus snarled, his hand moving toward his gun. "Draw that weapon and I will arrest you," Sheriff Coleman warned, his own pistol now in his hand. "Or shoot you myself if you give me cause. Your choice, Reeves." For a long moment, Harper thought Marcus would actually do it, would pull his gun and force a confrontation. She held her breath, acutely aware of Bennett's solid presence between her and danger, just as he had promised. Then Marcus seemed to realize he was outnumbered and outgunned. His hand fell away from his weapon, but his eyes were full of malice. "This is not over," he hissed. "You hear me, Harper? This is not over." "Yes, it is," Bennett said firmly. "She is my wife now. You have no claim on her. Leave town, Reeves, and do not come back. There is nothing for you here." Sheriff Coleman gestured to one of his deputies. "Escort Mr. Reeves to the edge of town. Make sure he understands that if he comes back, he will be arrested for harassment and threatening behavior." Marcus allowed himself to be led away, but he looked back over his shoulder at Harper with such venom that she shivered. Bennett felt it and turned to her, his face softening. "Are you all right?" "I do not know," Harper admitted. "He will not give up, Bennett. You do not know him like I do. He will find a way to make us pay for this." "Let him try," Bennett said. "You are a Nash now. That means something in this county. It means you have people who will stand with you, protect you. You are not alone anymore." They returned to the ranch, and Harper tried to push aside her fear about Marcus. She had a new life to build now, a new identity. She was Mrs. Bennett Nash, and that came with both safety and responsibility. She threw herself into making the house perfect, into learning the rhythms of ranch life, into being the best wife she could be to the man who had saved her. Bennett was endlessly patient with her. He never pushed her, never demanded anything she was not ready to give. At night, he slept in his own room, giving her space and time to heal. During the day, they worked side by side, and Harper found herself falling into an easy companionship with him that felt nothing like the suffocating intensity Marcus had demanded. One evening, about a week after their wedding, Harper was sewing on the porch, enjoying the cool air when Bennett came to sit beside her. He had cleaned up after his day's work and smelled of soap and leather. "What are you making?" he asked. "A shirt for you," Harper said, holding up the garment. "I noticed most of yours are getting threadbare." Bennett touched the fabric, his fingers brushing hers. "You do not have to do that. I can buy new shirts in town." "I want to," Harper said. "Besides, I am good at it. It feels nice to use my skills again." They sat in comfortable silence for a while, watching the sun set over the prairie. Then Bennett said quietly, "Can I ask you something?" "Of course." "Do you regret it? Marrying me?" Harper set down her sewing and looked at him. His face was turned toward the horizon, but she could see the tension in his jaw. "No. Why would you think that?" "Because you seem sad sometimes. Distant. I worry that I pushed you into this before you were ready." Harper felt a rush of tenderness for this man who worried so much about her well-being. "I am sad sometimes because of what Marcus did to me, not because of you. Bennett, marrying you was the first choice I have made for myself in over a year. You gave me back my freedom, my sense of safety. I could never regret that." Bennett turned to look at her, and there was something raw in his eyes. "I want you to be happy, Harper, truly happy, not just safe." "I am getting there," Harper said honestly. "Every day I feel a little bit more like myself again." "That is because of you, because you are patient and kind, and you never make me feel like I owe you anything. Do you know how rare that is? How precious?" Bennett reached out slowly and tucked a strand of hair behind her ear, his touch feather light. "You are the precious one. I just wish you could see yourself the way I see you." "How do you see me?" Harper asked, her voice barely above a whisper, as brave, strong, beautiful inside and out, as someone who has been through hell and came out the other side still fighting, still hoping. "You inspire me, Harper." Harper felt tears slip down her cheeks, but for once they were not tears of fear or pain. Bennett wiped them away with his thumb, his touch so gentle it made her heart ache. "I think I am starting to fall in love with you," she whispered. "I did not think I could feel this way again, but you make me want to try. Is that all right?" Bennett's smile was like the sun breaking through clouds. "That is more than all right. That is everything." He leaned in slowly, giving her time to pull away if she wanted, and kissed her. This time it was not the chaste brush of lips at their wedding, but something deeper, fuller. Harper felt something inside her unfold, like a flower opening to the light. When they finally pulled apart, Bennett rested his forehead against hers. "We can go as slow as you need," he said. "I am not going anywhere." "I know," Harper said, and she did. Whatever happened with Marcus, whatever challenges lay ahead, she knew Bennett Nash would be right there, standing between her and harm. He had promised he would not move an inch, and she believed him. The peace lasted for almost a month. Harper grew more comfortable in her role as Bennett's wife, and the love between them deepened with each passing day. She learned to ride, something Marcus had never allowed her to do, and Bennett was a patient teacher. She learned the names of all the cattle, the quirks of each horse, the routines of ranch life. Pete, Jack, and Tom became like family, teasing her gently and accepting her as part of the ranch. Harper even began to think that maybe Marcus had finally given up, had accepted that she was beyond his reach. Then one night, she woke to the smell of smoke. She bolted upright in bed, her heart racing. Through her window, she could see an orange glow coming from the direction of the barn. She threw on her robe and ran from her room, nearly colliding with Bennett in the hallway. He was already dressed, pulling on his boots. "Fire," he said grimly. "Get outside, away from the buildings. Wake Pete and the boys if you can." Harper ran to do as he said, her mind racing. The bunkhouse was closer to the barn than the main house, and she could already see Pete and the others running toward the flames with buckets. By the time she reached them, Bennett was organizing a bucket brigade from the water pump to the barn. "The horses," Harper gasped. "Bennett, the horses are in there." "I know," Bennett said, thrusting a bucket into her hands. "Keep this line moving. I am going to get them out." "No, it is too dangerous," Harper protested, but Bennett was already running toward the burning barn. She watched in terror as he disappeared into the smoke, then forced herself to focus on passing buckets. They had to contain this fire before it spread to the other buildings. It felt like an eternity before Bennett emerged from the barn, leading 3 terrified horses. He handed them off to Tom and dove back in. He made 2 more trips, getting all the animals to safety before finally staying out. His face was covered in soot, and he was coughing, but he grabbed a bucket and joined the line. It took hours to get the fire under control. By the time the sun rose, the barn was a charred ruin, but they had managed to save the other buildings and all the animals. Everyone was exhausted, covered in soot and ash. Bennett walked the perimeter of the remains, his face grim. "This was not an accident," he said, pointing to several spots where the fire had clearly been set deliberately. "Someone did this on purpose." "Marcus," Harper said, her voice hollow. "He did this. I know he did." "We do not know that for certain," Pete said, but his tone suggested he thought the same thing. "Who else would it be?" Harper felt sick. "This is my fault. He did this because of me." "No," Bennett said sharply. He crossed to her and took her shoulders, making her look at him. "This is Marcus's fault, not yours. He is the one who cannot let go, who would rather destroy than accept that he is lost. Do not you dare blame yourself for his actions." "But Bennett, he burned down your barn. You could have been killed getting the horses out." "But I was not." "The horses are fine, and we can rebuild a barn. What we cannot do is let this drive us apart, because that is what he wants. He wants you to feel guilty to leave. That is not going to happen." Sheriff Coleman arrived mid-morning, surveying the damage with a practiced eye. "Someone set this deliberately. You have any enemies, Nash?" "One," Bennett said. "Marcus Reeves. He has been harassing my wife since before we married, angry that she chose me instead of him." The sheriff wrote notes in a small book. "I will ask around, see if anyone saw anything. But unless we have proof, there is not much I can do legally. I ran Reeves out of town, but that does not mean he could not have snuck back to do this." "Find him," Bennett said, his voice hard. "Find him and make sure he knows that if he sets foot on my property again, I will handle it myself." After the sheriff left, Bennett called a meeting with Pete, Jack, and Tom. "We are going to need to rebuild the barn, but more importantly, we need better security. From now on, we post a guard at night, rotating shifts. Anyone sees anything suspicious, they raise the alarm immediately. I will not have Harper living in fear, and I will not let Reeves destroy what we have built here." The men agreed readily, and Harper felt a rush of gratitude for their loyalty. Over the next few weeks, work on the new barn progressed quickly, with neighbors coming to help in the tradition of barn raisings. Harper cooked for the workers, fed them, and listened to their gossip. It was through one of these neighbors that she learned Marcus had been spotted in the next county over, bragging in a saloon about teaching someone a lesson. "It was him," she told Bennett that night. "He burned the barn and he is proud of it." "I know," Bennett said. His anger was a quiet, dangerous thing. But without proof, the sheriff cannot arrest him, so we stay vigilant and we do not give him another opening. But staying vigilant was exhausting. Harper found herself jumping at every sound, watching the horizon for signs of Marcus. The easy joy she had found in her new life was tainted by constant fear. Bennett noticed, and it clearly pained him, but there was little he could do beyond reassure her and maintain their security measures. 2 months after the fire, on a cold November evening, Marcus finally made his move. Harper was in the kitchen preparing supper when she heard shouting from outside. She ran to the window and saw Marcus riding up the drive, flanked by 4 armed men. Pete was running from the bunkhouse, rifle in hand, and Bennett was emerging from the barn. Harper's blood turned to ice. This was it. Marcus had finally decided to force the issue. She grabbed the shotgun Bennett kept by the door and ran outside, ignoring his orders to stay in the house. Bennett had planted himself in the middle of the drive, his rifle leveled at Marcus. Pete stood beside him, and Jack and Tom were running from the far pasture. Marcus reined in about 20 feet from Bennett, a sneer on his handsome face. "This is your last chance, Nash," Marcus called. "Send Harper out here and we will leave peacefully. Keep her, and things are going to get ugly." "She is my wife," Bennett said, his voice carrying clearly across the distance. "She stays with me. You need to leave my property, Reeves, right now." "I do not think so," Marcus said. He gestured to his hired guns. "I have got 5 men to your 3. The odds are in my favor." "You have got 5 men who are going to hang for murder if this goes the way you are planning," Bennett countered. "Is that really what you want? To die over a woman who does not love you?" "She does love me," Marcus insisted, his face flushing. "She is just confused. You have poisoned her mind against me, but I will fix that once I get her away from here." Harper stepped forward, the shotgun heavy in her hands. "I will never love you, Marcus. I never really did. I was in love with the idea of you, the man you pretended to be. But the real you is cruel and controlling and violent. I would rather die than go back to you." "Harper, get back in the house," Bennett said urgently, not taking his eyes off Marcus. "No," Harper said. "I am done hiding. Marcus, you need to hear this. I am happy here. Bennett treats me with respect and kindness. He does not hit me or scream at me or make me feel small. He makes me feel valued and loved. I am not leaving him, not now, not ever. You have no power over me anymore." Marcus's face contorted with rage. "You ungrateful witch! I gave you everything. I was going to make you a respectable wife, give you a good life. You gave me bruises and fear," Harper shot back. "That is not love, Marcus, that is ownership, and I am not your property." "Enough," Marcus snarled. He drew his pistol, pointing it not at Bennett but at Harper. "If I cannot have you, no one will." Everything happened at once. Bennett lunged toward Harper, putting himself between her and Marcus. The sound of gunfire exploded across the yard. Harper screamed and tried to push Bennett aside, terrified Marcus had shot him. But Bennett was still standing, and Marcus was falling from his horse, clutching his shoulder. Pete had fired first, his shot true despite his age. The hired guns looked at their wounded employer, then at the determined faces of the ranch hands, and clearly decided they were not paid enough for this. They dropped their weapons and raised their hands. "Smart choice," Tom said, covering them with his rifle. Bennett turned to Harper, his hands running over her frantically, checking for injuries. "Are you hurt? Did he hit you?" "No, I am fine." "Bennett, you could have been killed." "Not likely," Bennett said, pulling her into his arms. "I told you, Harper, I am not moving, not 1 inch. Not for him, not for anyone." Sheriff Coleman arrived within the hour, summoned by a neighbor who had heard the gunshots. He took statements from everyone, arrested Marcus and his hired guns, and assured Bennett that this time there would be charges that would stick. Attempted murder, arson, trespassing with intent to harm, the sheriff listed. Reeves is going to prison for a good long while, maybe forever if the judge is feeling harsh, and given his reputation, I think he will be. As the sheriff led Marcus away, the man looked back at Harper one last time. But the possessive rage in his eyes had been replaced by something else: defeat. He finally understood that she was beyond his reach, protected by a man who would literally take a bullet for her. That night, after all the excitement had died down and the ranch hands had returned to their bunkhouse, Harper and Bennett sat on the porch together. Harper was still shaking from the adrenaline, and Bennett kept his arm around her, solid and reassuring. "I thought he was going to kill you," Harper whispered. "When you stepped in front of me, I thought I was going to lose you." "You are not getting rid of me that easily," Bennett said, trying for levity. "Besides, I promised I would stand between you and him. A man keeps his promises." "You are an idiot," Harper said, but there was no heat in it. "A brave, wonderful, idiotic man who nearly gave me a heart attack." "I love you too," Bennett said, and Harper realized that was exactly what she meant. She loved him fully and completely in a way she had never loved Marcus. This was real love, built on trust and respect and genuine care for each other's well-being. "I do love you," Harper said, turning to look at him. "Bennett Nash, I love you so much it terrifies me." Bennett cupped her face in his hands, his thumbs stroking her cheeks. "Do not be terrified, be happy. We have got our whole lives ahead of us now, without Marcus hanging over our heads. We can build something real together." "I want that," Harper said. "I want to build a life with you, a real marriage. I want to wake up next to you and fall asleep in your arms. I want to have children with you and grow old together. I want all of it, Bennett." "Then you shall have it," Bennett promised. He kissed her, slow and deep, and Harper felt the last of her walls crumble. She was safe now, truly safe, with a man who had proven time and again that he would protect her without hesitation. That night, Harper moved her things into Bennett's room. They made love slowly, tenderly, with Bennett checking in at every step to make sure she was comfortable, that she wanted this. And Harper did want it, wanted him, with an intensity that surprised her. This was what love was supposed to feel like, safe and exciting all at once, generous and passionate and full of mutual respect. Afterwards, lying in Bennett's arms with her head on his chest, Harper felt a peace she had never known. "Thank you," she whispered. "For what?" "For not moving. For standing between me and him, over and over again. For giving me time to heal. For loving me even when I was too broken to love you back." Bennett pressed a kiss to her hair. "You were never broken, Harper, just hurt, and I would do it all again in a heartbeat. You are worth every risk, every moment of fear. You are worth everything." The trial took place in early December. Marcus was convicted on all charges and sentenced to 20 years in prison. His hired guns received lighter sentences in exchange for their testimony, and the judge made it clear that Marcus Reeves would never be welcome in Coolidge or the surrounding counties again. Harper attended the trial, sitting beside Bennett, and when the sentence was read, she felt something release in her chest. It was finally over. Marcus could never hurt her again. Christmas that year was the happiest Harper could remember. She decorated the ranch house with pine boughs and candles, cooked a feast for Bennett and the ranch hands, and received her first real Christmas present in years, a beautiful sewing machine that Bennett had ordered specially from Dallas. "So you can start that seamstress business you have been talking about," he said, looking pleased with himself. "I know keeping house is not enough for you. You need something that is yours, something you can build." Harper threw her arms around him, overwhelmed by his thoughtfulness. "How did you know I was thinking about that?" "Because I pay attention to my wife," Bennett said, holding her close. "And because I see the way your face lights up when you are sewing. You have a gift, Harper. You should share it with the world." So Harper started taking in sewing from the neighbors, mending and alterations at first, then commissioned pieces as word of her skills spread. By spring, she had more work than she could handle, and Bennett built her a small workroom off the back of the house where she could focus on her craft. Life settled into a comfortable rhythm. The ranch prospered under Bennett's careful management, and Harper's sewing business brought in additional income and gave her a sense of independence she treasured. Pete, Jack, and Tom became like family, often joining Bennett and Harper for Sunday dinners and holidays. In late summer, Harper realized she was pregnant. She told Bennett one evening after supper, nervous about how he would react. They had talked about children in abstract terms, but the reality felt different. Bennett's face transformed when she told him, joy lighting his features from within. "Truly, we are going to have a baby." "Yes," Harper said, laughing at his excitement. "Sometime in late winter or early spring, the doctor thinks." Bennett picked her up and spun her around, then set her down carefully as if she were made of glass. "I am going to be a father. Harper, you have made me the happiest man in Texas." The pregnancy progressed smoothly. Bennett was attentive without being overbearing, making sure Harper did not overwork herself but respecting her independence. He talked to her growing belly every night, telling their unborn child about the ranch, about the mother who was brave and beautiful, about all the adventures they would have. Harper fell more in love with him every day. This gentle, strong man who had saved her life and given her a future beyond her wildest dreams. She could hardly remember the frightened woman who had run up his porch steps that fateful evening. That Harper had been running from her past. This Harper was running toward her future, hand in hand with the man she loved. In March of 1885, Harper gave birth to a healthy baby boy with dark hair like his father and eyes that would eventually turn the same warm brown. They named him William, after Bennett's father, and he immediately became the center of their world. Bennett was a devoted father from the first moment, getting up for night feedings, changing diapers without complaint, spending hours just watching William sleep with wonder on his face. Harper would often find the two of them together, Bennett softly singing old cowboy songs or telling stories about the ranch. "I never thought I would have this," Bennett confessed one night as they watched William sleep in his cradle. "After losing my first wife, my sister, I thought my chance at family was gone. Then you came running up my porch and my whole world changed." "Mine too," Harper said, leaning against him. "I was so lost, so afraid. You gave me back my life, Bennett. You gave me everything." "We gave each other everything," Bennett corrected. "You make me better, Harper. You and William, you are my purpose, my reason for everything." As William grew from baby to toddler, the ranch continued to thrive. Harper balanced motherhood with her sewing business, and Bennett expanded the herd and started breeding horses seriously. They built a good life together, one based on mutual respect, genuine love, and shared dreams. When William was 2, Harper became pregnant again. This time, she gave birth to a daughter with Harper's blonde hair and Bennett's steady gaze. They named her Rose, and she completed their family in a way Harper had not known was possible. Bennett adored both his children equally, teaching William to ride almost as soon as he could walk, holding Rose while Harper worked, reading them stories every night before bed. Harper watched him with their children and marveled at how different he was from Marcus, how love could be gentle and patient instead of demanding and cruel. The years passed in a blur of happiness, punctuated by the normal challenges of ranch life. There were hard winters and dry summers, cattle lost to disease and horses that needed breaking. But through it all, Harper and Bennett faced everything together, their love only deepening with time. Pete eventually retired, staying on at the ranch in a small cabin Bennett built for him, helping with the children and light work. Jack married a girl from town and moved to his own small spread nearby. Tom took over as foreman, proving himself capable and trustworthy. On their 10th wedding anniversary, Bennett took Harper on a picnic to the spot where she had first seen the ranch house. They sat on a blanket watching the sunset paint the sky in shades of gold and pink, just as it had that first evening. "You ever regret it?" Bennett asked. "Marrying me so quickly, building this life?" Harper looked at him, at the face she knew as well as her own, weathered now by sun and time, but still the same honest, steady man who had stood between her and danger without flinching. "Not for a single second," she said. "You saved my life that day, Bennett, not just by protecting me from Marcus, but by showing me what real love looks like. You gave me a home, a family, a future. How could I ever regret that?" "I am the one who should be grateful," Bennett said, taking her hand. "You brought joy back into my life. You filled my house with love and laughter. You gave me 2 beautiful children and a reason to be a better man. I love you more today than I did the day we married, and I will love you more tomorrow than I do today." Harper leaned in to kiss him, this man who had kept his promise, who had stood between her and harm and never moved an inch. He had been her shield, her sanctuary, and eventually her great love. Together, they had built something beautiful from the ashes of her past. As the sun set over the Copper Creek Ranch, Harper Winters Nash felt a contentment so complete it almost hurt. She had been running when she found Bennett, desperate and terrified. Now she had no reason to run, only reasons to stay. She had a husband who loved her, children who filled her days with joy, and a life beyond anything she had dared to hope for during those dark days fleeing Marcus. The past could not be changed or forgotten, but it had led her here, to this man, to this life. And for that, Harper would be forever grateful. She thought of the frightened woman who had run up Bennett's porch that evening, and she wished she could tell her that everything would be all right, that she would find safety and love and home. But that woman was gone now, transformed by love and time into someone stronger, happier, whole. And as Bennett's arms came around her and they watched the stars emerge in the vast Texas sky, Harper knew with absolute certainty that she was exactly where she was meant to be. Years continued to pass in their happy rhythm. William grew into a responsible young man who loved the ranch as much as his father did, learning everything Bennett could teach him about cattle and horses and the land. Rose developed her mother's skill with a needle, often sitting beside Harper in the workroom, creating beautiful things with patient hands. Harper's reputation as a seamstress spread throughout the county. She made wedding dresses and Sunday suits, mended ranch clothes, and created delicate embroidery that women treasured. The work gave her pride and purpose beyond her roles as wife and mother, though those roles remained the center of her world. Bennett's hair turned more gray, his face more lined, but his love for Harper never wavered. He still looked at her each morning as if she were a miracle, still thanked her for every meal, still held her close each night. The passion of their early days had mellowed into something deeper, more sustaining. They could communicate with a glance, work together without words, comfort each other with just a touch. On the 15th anniversary of the day Harper had run up Bennett's porch, they held a celebration at the ranch. Friends and neighbors came from miles around, bringing food and music and laughter. Pete, now quite elderly, sat in a place of honor, regaling William and Rose with stories of their parents' early days. "Your father," Pete said, his voice carrying across the yard, "stood on that porch with his rifle and did not move an inch when that Reeves fellow came calling. Stood between him and your mother like a wall, never flinching, never backing down. That is when I knew he was the real thing. A man who keeps his word no matter the cost." William looked at his father with obvious pride, and Bennett just shrugged, embarrassed by the attention. But Harper squeezed his hand, remembering that day, remembering every day since. Bennett had kept his word in ways large and small, every single day of their marriage. As the party wound down and guests departed, Harper and Bennett found themselves alone on the porch where it had all begun. The same stars shone overhead, the same prairie wind rustled through the grass. But everything else had changed, transformed by love and time and dedication. 15 years, Harper marveled. Sometimes it feels like 15 minutes, and sometimes it feels like we have always been together. Both, Bennett agreed. Time is strange like that. He pulled her close, and she rested her head on his shoulder, perfectly content. Thank you for running up my porch that day. Thank you for trusting me, for building this life with me. You are the best thing that ever happened to me, Harper Nash. And you are mine, Harper said softly. My protector, my partner, my love. I would not change a single thing about our story. As they sat together in the deepening twilight, Harper thought about how far she had come. From a terrified woman running for her life to this, a woman secure in love and family and purpose. Bennett had given her the safety to heal, the space to grow, and the love to flourish. He had stood between her and danger, yes, but he had also stood beside her through every challenge and triumph. The children came out to join them, William tall and strong at 13, Rose bright and curious at 11. Bennett pulled them all close. His family and Harper felt tears of gratitude sting her eyes. This was what Marcus had tried to destroy, this capacity for love and trust and joy. But he had failed. She had survived, and more than survived, she had thrived. I love you all so much, Harper said, looking at each beloved face in turn. You are my everything, and you are ours, Bennett replied, speaking for all of them. As the stars wheeled overhead and the night sounds of the prairie surrounded them, the Nash family sat together in perfect contentment. They had built something lasting, something real, something beautiful. And it had all started with a desperate woman running for her life, and a rancher who refused to move an inch. The story could have ended in tragedy, in violence and loss. Instead, it became a love story, a testament to the power of protection and patience, of standing firm in the face of danger, of giving someone the space and safety to heal. Harper had been hiding from a vengeful ex, and the rancher had stood between them and never moved an inch. That simple act of courage had changed both their lives forever, leading to a love deeper than either had dreamed possible. In the end, that was what mattered. Not the fear or the flight, not the danger or the threats, but the love they had built together. A love that would last all their days and echo in the generations that followed. A love worth standing for, worth fighting for, worth everything. As Harper drifted off to sleep that night in Bennett's arms, she smiled, thinking of all the years stretching before them. Years of love and laughter, challenges and triumphs, the daily joys of a life well lived. She had found her home, her haven, her heart. And she knew, with the certainty that came from 15 years of proof, that Bennett would always be there, standing firm, protecting what they had built, loving her with his whole heart. The Copper Creek Ranch thrived for many more years under the Nash family's careful stewardship. William eventually took over much of the day-to-day operations, proving himself as capable and dedicated as his father. Rose married a kind young man from a neighboring ranch and started her own seamstress business in town, carrying on her mother's legacy. Bennett and Harper grew old together, their love only deepening with each passing year. On quiet evenings, they would sit on that same porch where their story began, holding hands and watching the sunset, grateful for every day they had been given. They told their grandchildren stories of the old days, of bravery and love and standing firm against danger. And always, when people asked how they met, Bennett would smile and say he had been standing on his porch one evening when the best thing in his life came running up the steps. He had protected her then, and he had protected her every day since, not just from external threats, but by being the steady, loving presence she needed to heal and grow and flourish. Harper would add that Bennett had given her everything, a home, a family, a life beyond her wildest dreams. He had stood between her and danger and never moved an inch, and in doing so, he had given her the greatest gift of all, the freedom to stop running and start living. Their love story became something of a legend in Coolidge, Texas, a reminder that sometimes the right person comes into your life exactly when you need them most. That protection and love can transform tragedy into triumph. That standing firm in the face of danger can change the course of two lives forever. Bennett and Harper Nash lived long, happy lives, surrounded by children and grandchildren, respected in their community, secure in the knowledge that they had built something lasting and true. They died within months of each other, as if neither could bear to be without the other for long. They were buried side by side on a hillside overlooking the Copper Creek Ranch, where the prairie grass waved in the eternal wind, and the Texas sky stretched endlessly overhead. Their headstone bore a simple inscription. She ran to him, he stood for her. Together they built a life of love. And in the hearts of everyone who knew them, Bennett and Harper Nash remained a shining example of what love could be when two people committed to standing together, to protecting each other, to building something beautiful from the ashes of pain. Their story lived on, a testament to courage and devotion, to the rancher who never moved an inch and the woman he loved with all his heart. The Copper Creek Ranch remained in the Nash family for generations, each successive inhabitant hearing the story of how it all began, of the day Harper Winters ran up the porch seeking safety and found instead her destiny. The house still stood, solid and welcoming, a symbol of the refuge Bennett had provided and the love they had built together. And sometimes, on quiet evenings when the wind whispered through the grass and the stars blazed overhead, you could almost see them there, the rancher and his beloved wife, sitting on the porch where their story began, hands clasped, hearts full, surrounded by the life they had created together. A life born from a moment of courage, sustained by unwavering love, and perfected by two people who understood that the best things in life are worth standing for, worth protecting, worth everything. Their legacy was not just the ranch or the children or the prosperity they built. It was the example they set of what it meant to truly love someone, to protect them without controlling them, to stand beside them through every storm. Bennett had stood between Harper and danger and never moved an inch, and in doing so, he had given her the foundation she needed to become the strong, confident, loving woman she was meant to be. And Harper had given Bennett purpose and joy, filling his empty house with love and laughter, showing him that his capacity for love had not died with his first wife and sister, but had only been waiting for the right person to reawaken it. Together, they had healed each other's wounds and built a love that would last beyond their lifetimes, echoing through the generations that followed. That was the true story of Harper Winters Nash and Bennett Nash, the woman who was hiding from a vengeful ex and the rancher who stood between them and never moved an inch. It was a love story for the ages, proof that sometimes the best things in life come from the worst circumstances, and that true love, real love, the kind that lasts, is built on trust, respect, protection, and unwavering devotion. And so their story ended not in tragedy but in triumph, not in fear but in love, a happily ever after earned through courage and dedication, through standing firm and holding fast, through never giving up on each other or the life they were building together. It was everything a love story should be, and it remained in the hearts of all who knew them as a shining example of what was possible when two people truly committed to loving and protecting each other through all the days of their lives. The end.